Eyes up here. So what we have here is the actual accounting form that we're going to put our payroll information. So far we have gone through and we have calculated our earnings and we have calculated our deductions. From that truly is your payroll. But we don't really have a way to have that information recorded. So what we are going to be doing is we're going to be using an accounting form called a payroll register. And I want you to realize that this payroll register is divided into sections, okay? So when we look at where we put numbers, do you see this heading right here that says earnings? Okay? How many columns deal with earnings? Right? Regular, overtime, and total. What's the next section for our payroll register? Deductions. And you see there are lots of columns here for deductions. Okay? And then our third section that we have here is, no, not accumulated, our net pay. That's physically the amount of the check that you're going to receive from your employer. Okay? So it's important that you see how this payroll register is divided up into separate sections, because when we have to go through and prove our work, we prove it left to right by sections. So we've talked about our earnings. We've talked about our deductions. The only thing that we haven't calculated is going to be our net pay. Okay? So we know that our total earnings is the total amount that an employee has earned based on how much they have worked. And if they are an hourly person, you're going to take the number of hours that they've worked times their rate. And if they have overtime, what is the calculation for an overtime rate? Time and a half, okay? So you have to add your regular and your overtime together to get your total earnings. How would I calculate net pay? Okay, not other total. Again, so we want to use our heading above. So you're really close, Ellie. So you have our total earnings, which is this column right here. And what are we going to subtract? Total deductions. And that is going to give me my net pay. Now, do you remember when I first talked about payroll and I said you have to be careful because if you make one mistake, it causes everything else to be wrong? Here's my example. If you calculate overtime incorrectly, total earnings is incorrect. Then this could or could not be incorrect. Do you know what I mean by that? Because depending on where it falls in the chart, so this one could be correct. What about Social Security? How do we calculate Social Security? Percent of our earnings. So if our earnings is incorrect, that would cause a problem there. And then we have our Medicare tax. How do we calculate that? Percent. So that one would be wrong because your earnings is incorrect. We have not talked about health insurance or other. Health insurance is going to be a set amount. So, for example, if I have a health insurance deduction coming out of my paycheck, every month it would be the same amount, maybe $75, $30, $150, $275, whatever it is. Every pay period it will be the same amount. How will we know that? The directions will tell you. And that's the easiest way to know. Now the other, I talked about it before, but in our book we have an example where the employees are going to be able to go through and have donations made to United Way, or they could go through and invest in U.S. savings bonds. So in the directions they will tell you if they have any other deductions, and if they are, you'd go through and fill it in on there. So we calculate then our total deductions, and then we do our net pay. So this is one accounting form that we have to use when we're calculating payroll. The next thing I want to do is I want to talk about our employees' earnings record. Don't start filling in numbers yet because we've got to see how all these parts play together. Now, employee earnings record. Do you remember when I talked about a tax base? Please, do you remember? Social Security, tax base? Anyone want to explain it? Crickets? Carson was nodding his head yes. Do you remember it? Yeah, exactly. And in our example, they said no one had reached that tax base. Nobody had made that amount. And in our book, it was $87,000, right? And we looked it up, and the actual number was like $115,000. 118? Okay. So basically, the minute you have total earnings, not the amount of money that you put in your pocket from being paid, but the physical amount of earnings, once it goes over that tax base, you don't have to pay Social Security tax anymore. So we have to know all the time for every employee where they're at. If I look at that payroll register, do I have information on an employee and how much earnings they have? No. The only thing I can see is the total amount for each pay period. So anytime an employee gets paid, so I know Alex said right away, on the 15th and the 30th, the school district will have a payroll register. Once a month, Kyle, right, is when you get paid? So once a month they would do a payroll register. Somebody gets paid once a week. You get paid once a week. So every week they have a new payroll register. Every pay period they'll go through and calculate that. Once you have the payroll register completed, then you have to go through and you just take the information and put it on the earnings record. And you update that information for each employee. And when we look at the columns, don't the columns look exactly the same as what we just looked at? Because we have earnings and we have deductions. And then notice we have another column over here on the right. And this column right here is the one that gets wrong in this chapter the most. Okay? And I always like to tell you that because I want you to be aware. What is the heading of this column? Accumulated earnings. Okay, is earnings what you take home, or is earnings what you have before deductions? Before deductions, and that's a key point. Okay, so we have a column here that goes through and allows us to keep track of how much we have earned before deductions. A lot of students, because this column is right next to net pay, they go through and they add that up, but that is wrong. You don't want to do that. Okay, so the steps in going through and filling out a payroll register is you would do your earnings, do your deductions, calculate your net pay, then you total and prove your payroll register. Once your payroll register equals, then you go through and post it on your employee earnings record. But here's the thing. You can get your payroll register to equal even if you have a mistake. Because there's not a way to go through and prove that you have the right earnings on there. The only way that we can prove it is that your earnings equals and your deductions equal and your net pay equals. So you have to slow down when you do this. I've said that lots of times. Don't rush through and complete these assignments really fast to get them done. And do it in the correct order of deductions and then withdrawals and then net pay. That's the way you have to go through and set that up. Okay, so let's take a look at filling in some information here. And you do need your accounting book. Why do we need our accounting book? Tax table. So our directions read, selected payroll data for antique shop are provided in the payroll registered below. Your instructor will guide you to the following example. Okay? Instruction number 1, complete the payroll register entry for Judy Hensley and Mike McCune for the semi-monthly pay period ended July 15th. Use the tax withholding table shown in lesson 12-2 and is at page 347 and 348. That's a gold star for me for remembering the page number off the top of my head because I didn't have my book open yet. Use a tax rate of 6.2% for Social Security and 1.45% for Medicare. It says neither employee has reached the tax base. For each employee, withhold $60 for health and $15 for U.S. savings bonds. So that's a lot of information. So the first thing we have to do on the very top of our payroll register is filled out the date. And it says semi-monthly pay period ending July 15th. And the date of the payment is going to be July 15th as well. So far we got the dates down. We're good on that? Now, we're going to go across and let's calculate our earnings. So we're going to take a look at Judy Hensley. She has regular earnings of $1,040, and she has overtime of $39. Add those two together, and I get $1,079. Agreed? So the next thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and do Mike's. So I'm going to do $920 for regular earnings, plus 51.75 for overtime, and then I got 971.75. Agreed? So the next thing we have to do is calculate our federal income tax, and that's using your tax tables on page 347 and 348. Now, Mike, married or single? Married. So what page should we go on? Second one, 348. Judy is married. Sorry, I said the wrong name. I really am doing the first person. Judy is married. Thank you. Judy is married, and she has earnings of $1,079. So I got 48. Anyone else agree? Yep. Then I'm going to go ahead and do Mike's because I am in the tax table right now. Mike is single with one, and he has $971. And these are nice because they are not falling exactly on a number. So for Mike, I have 95. All right, Tyson agrees. Yep. Yes, because the column on the right says less than. So that would be for 159. You would have to go, if you have that number, you have to go on the at least column. Okay? So the next thing we'll do is we'll go through and we'll calculate our Social Security. To calculate Social Security, take your regular earnings, or excuse me, your total earnings, $1,079, and you're going to multiply that by your Social Security rate of 0.62% or 0.062. And that will give you $66. And then I have 90 cents. Do you guys agree on the 90 cents? Take a look at how that would round. Being a penny off causes big problems. I'm going to go ahead and do Judy's Medicare. I'm going to take $1,079. And I'm going to multiply that by the Medicare rate of 0.0145. And I got $15.65 for rounding. Tyson's nodding at me, so he must agree. How much are we taking out for health insurance? 60, so I just put 60 in. And do we have any other deductions? No, it wasn't the same amount. So they go through and they said, in our directions right here, it says withhold 60 for health insurance and 15 for U.S. savings bonds. So in the other section, we're going to put 15 for U.S. savings bonds. I just closed my calculator on accident. So I am going to add up just my deductions. I'm going to add up 48 plus 66.90, 15.65, 60, 15. I got 205.55, but I think I punched something in wrong. Did you? 48 plus 66.90, 15.65, 60, 15. 205.55. So I would put that right here. To calculate your net pay, which is the last column for Judy, you would take your deductions of 205.55, and from that I would take that away from her total earnings, which is $1,079, and that would give me $873.45. So far, nothing new here. The only thing we've done different is going through and calculating our net pay. Let's do the same thing for Mike. Okay, again, Mike has earnings of $971.75. Multiply that by 0.062, and I get $60.25. All right. $971.75. Multiply that by my Medicare tax rate of 0.0145, and that gives me $14.09. They both have the same for health insurance and other. So now I just add up across for my deduction heading. I got $244.34. And again, I'm in class and I'm announcing it and someone else can confirm or not confirm, but if I'm doing this independently, what do I need to do? I would add it up twice to see if I got the same number. Okay, so the last thing I have to do is I have to then take that and calculate my net pay. Which will give me $727. I just forgot the rest of it. 41. Bless you. Okay. We just did instruction number 1 here. It says complete the payroll register for Judy Hensley. Now instruction number 2 reads total all of the amount columns of our payroll register and prove the payroll register. Now this is where we have to go through and do a little bit more work. So the first thing I have to do on line 3 of my payroll register, I'm going to type in totals. Now we really just go through and add down. So I would take 1,040 plus 920. $39 plus $51.75, $90.75. All right. How are we adding across? We're doing well? Now, I want your eyes up here because now I need to prove it. Okay? So, to prove it, I always liked when I taught this section, and I used to teach on overhead projector before this was all computerized and you had to write in a workbook. I need to take 1,960 plus what? 90.75, and what should that equal? Total earnings. Check that part right now. Okay? These two right here, 1,960 plus 90.75, needs to equal this. If it does, give me a thumbs up. Katie, good? Brayden? Yes? Jory? Yes? Okay. Now, you have to do that step first. You have to prove the left side first, And then we'll prove the right side. So guess what we're going to do now? We're going to add up federal income tax total, plus Social Security tax total, plus Medicare tax total, plus health insurance total, plus other total should equal total. Does that make sense? Do that right now. Double check the math. Now you're going to prove your deduction section. Nice. Oh, got 3 thumbs up. 4, 5, 6, 7. Jory? 8. Inman, you got it? Suzico? Yours did not? Okay. Now, here's the reason why we've done it in steps. If your earnings total didn't equal, let's say that I did the math wrong and I had $951.75 right here. If that didn't equal, what would that tell me I have to do? Find out where the error is. And if I make a change here, what's going to happen? Everything over for that one person is going to be incorrect. So we check here first, because if this has a mistake, that tells us we have to make some changes to here. Okay? So far, our total earnings is good. Our total deductions is good. So how do we calculate proving our net pay? Yes, it's fun to say total, isn't it? Total earnings, the 2,050, we're going to subtract from our total deductions, which is 449.89, and that should equal your total net pay. It's very important that you slow down and prove that. I know it's really easy to go through and just add up the totals and move on. You have a lot of points that rest on these assignments because each one of those is a different number that you have to fill in. So this is a way for you to slow down and check to make sure you have your work correct. Did we do a good job? Okay, obviously that's all the further I'm going to have a chance to get through today because we played Kahoot to make a nice another new video for highlighting business ed. So there will not be an assignment for tomorrow. We'll finish this up tomorrow. So just go ahead and save that. Don't worry, it says that it's due today at 9:30. It's just to work together and on your own. Just make sure you save it.
Ms. Grasso, I won't be here tomorrow.